probably the biggest thing is for women to find something that they love.
Yeah.
That they love doing, because if you love doing it, you're going to stick to it.
Welcome to Midlife Unraveled, the podcast that opens the door to this incredible stage of life. Together, we'll explore new opportunities that boost your confidence and extend your horizons. I'm your host, Anita Gilbert, and every week I'm joined by fascinating guests as we explore new ideas, debunk myths, and unveil opportunities for you to confidently redefine your midlife. Plus, we always manage a laugh along the way. I'm thrilled to have you here. I'm delighted today to have a conversation with Nina Turner. She is an exercise powerhouse. She has her own studio in sunny North Shore of Sydney, and she has trained clients all over the world. With over 30 years of experience, she really has seen so much. She's seen the developments in types of exercise, and she is a wonderful source of information when we talk about exercise and midlife. I hope you enjoy. Nina, welcome to Midlife Unraveled.
Hi, Anita. Thank you so much for having me today.
Now, Nina, you've got decades of experience in the fitness business, both here and internationally, and you see so many midlife women at your beautiful studio in North Shore of Sydney, and you really have a real good feel for what sort of exercise people are looking to do and what sort of exercise people need to do in midlife. So, Nina, tell us about what sort of things you're seeing for women in their midlife in terms of their exercise.
Well, I definitely think there has been a massive shift. I've been in the industry for, I'd say, 35 years now, and it's been a privilege, obviously, to get older in my career and still do what I do. I think in my early parts of my fitness career, menopause was never really talked about as it is today. And I feel that many women weren't able to speak about it. They didn't have that same exposure that we have today with the support and online resources and those conversations. And so when I was a younger instructor, there was definitely not much talk about menopause at all. And it would often probably be the silent elephant in the room, so to speak, that, nobody was really speaking about it. And you would see, women suddenly coming in looking very different, and that was quite interesting, but it was never ever spoken about. And I think what's happened in the past few years definitely is that it's changed because people are able to discuss it now, and they're starting to embrace this time in their lives with a lot more of a holistic approach. So definitely,
I feel like people are also seeking out solutions as opposed to something. I feel like in the past it was always something that happens and we keep it very low key and we don't talk about it. We don't tell anybody about it. We just keep it to ourselves and try not to show it to anybody else. And now women are finding their voice and actually finding that there are menopause symptoms that can be handled with different treatments. They're much more comfortable in speaking about it and finding ways in which we can be more visible and more and generally stronger in ourselves at this time of life. And how is that showing up through the women you see in your studio in terms of the exercise that they're looking to do?
Well, what's quite interesting about exercise now is that I feel because there's this holistic approach to exercise, you have a lot more. So, for example, in our studio, we have a variety of exercises. So we don't just focus on one thing. And I think that's quite important as well. With this holistic approach, I feel like women are looking more for, there's flexibility training, there's functional training about balance, there's more mindfulness with yoga and Pilates and meditation. Obviously, there's that strength component to training where resistance training becomes so more important, and there's that cardiovascular element as well. And I suppose probably the biggest thing is for women to find something that they love doing, because if you love doing it, you're going to stick to it. It's no point saying to somebody, you need to get out there and you need to get cardiovascular fitness. If people don't like to run, there's no ways they're going to go out there and do that, but they might really love walking, or they might really enjoy non-weight bearing exercise like cycling or swimming. And I think when you find something you love, you're more likely to stick to it. And then that obviously has a knock-on effect with everything else we do.
That is so true. And I see that so much in the studio that I've got in Sydney as well. And it's also what I've been saying to people. A lot of people are like, well, I don't know what I like. And I like to ask them, like, what did you enjoy doing in your teens and 20s? What did you love doing? And some of them are like, oh, I love doing dance. I'm like, well, you can do a dance class or go and do a bar class. We've got so many women that love bar classes because it has that touch point with their dancing that they did 30, 40 years ago. And it's joyful to do something that you used to love doing. Like, I've recently started playing tennis again. And it's full of women like me who haven't picked up a racket in 20 years. And now it's that stage of life where we have a little bit more time. The kids are a little bit older, and we can actually take that time for ourselves and actually really nurture ourselves. And the effects being not just physical, but mental as well. I feel like people are so much more knowledgeable in terms of the exercise component in their all over health, not just their physical health, but their mental health as well.
Absolutely. And I think also what's happening is people start to really see the benefits of exercise, that endorphin release that, I'll often say to members, they'll come into the studio and you never know what's been going on in someone's day before they walk through that door. And,
that's very true.
There could be so much going on in the background and they come and do a class and you can see immediately their mood has been lifted. They feel different. And the fact that they've come and done something for themselves is so empowering. Yeah. It's that 45 minutes or an hour, whatever they do just for them. Yeah. And I think that's really, really important, going back to what you were saying about, I think this time in our lives, there's that lonely element of, am I doing this all by myself, this menopause phase? And that's why it's so lovely to speak to other women who go, yes, that's me too. I get anxious or I feel a bit blue. And, I think just knowing that you can come and be around like-minded people that are going through those same things as you and just doing stuff that you just really enjoy doing.
Exactly. I feel like you can't underestimate the connection and women being together and exercising together. So doing something that you love doing together makes it so much more fun. It also means you're so much more committed to doing it, because it's like, hey, it's not only an exercise thing. I'm not only doing this because it's good for my body and my mind, but I'm going to see my friend.
Absolutely.
I'm going to have a chat with women. I may only see them once a week at yoga class, but it's a beautiful way to connect. And I feel that we need to do that, especially at this time of life, because there are a lot of changes going on, and I feel like it can be a very lonely time as well for a lot of women. So to actually have that piece that they can step into, that class, that familiarity, being around like-minded people really does have an impact.
100%. I think you're so right. There's definitely that element of just feeling like you're not alone.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I say, sometimes, if we were to say how many times do you feel like training every week, often the answer is not many times. And if you were left to your own devices and you just went to a gym on your own, you probably wouldn't go. But when you know you're coming to a group class where you have your friends that you've made or like-minded people, or you love the choreography or the music or the vibe of that certain class, it makes all the difference.
Exactly.
Your mental health, your stress, your well-being,
I feel like when you exercise also, I know that personally with me, that it brings everything else into balance. I feel like when I exercise regularly, and I'm saying daily, and I'll get onto that, but exercising regularly, I feel like I eat better. I'm more inclined to make better food choices. I'm physically as well as mentally tired at the end of the day. So I find I sleep better. And just those three things, eating better, sleeping better, and feeling better in myself after exercising, makes a massive, massive impact. And it's not just how you feel, but it's how how you your moods are, how you are around other people. Are you grumbly? Are you actually a fairly positive, chirpy person? I think that all these sort of things have such an impact for us that we don't necessarily see straight away. But what's your view on like regularity of exercise? How much do you think people should be doing?
That's a great question. I think, again, in my studio, because we have such a variety of classes, our members are most of them are training at least 5 to 6 times a week, but their training is so varied. So, for example, they might do a reformer class, they might do a total body conditioning class, they'll do a bar class. I think with training, I'd say the secret to training is you've got to mix it up, and it's not necessarily important as to how many times you're training. It's more important as to maybe what you're training and the quality of what you're training. So, for example, you might walk once a week, you might go for a swim, you might go to the studio and do a reformer class, and then, you might do a spinning class. Or I think the secret is definitely, I think it's more about not how many times you train, but if you really love it, you'll stick to it. Because if you stick to it, again, that knock-on effect is what you were saying about you eat better, you sleep better, you do things better. Again, if you stick to something and you love it, you're more inclined to have that consistency in your training.
Exactly. So the consistency is the key, really.
Consistency is huge.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing to remember as well with training and exercise and what we're going through is there are going to be days that you don't feel like it, and that's okay. We don't need to beat ourselves up. If you don't want to come, you don't come. But even if you do turn up, I often say to members, how often are you here today and you don't really feel like being here? And I put my hand up sometimes as well and say, I don't really feel like it today, but I know that when I finish this workout with you all, I'm going to feel 100% better. And I'm going to be so glad I turned up. And even if you just say, today I'm not going to think about maybe going harder in my workout or going a little bit deeper with what I'm doing. I'm just here to enjoy the music, or I'm here because I've just turned up, and I think those are all such powerful indicators, and maybe at this time in our lives to just be a little bit kinder to ourselves.
I feel like there's sorry, okay.
No, carry on.
I feel like there's a big piece of listening to your body and being aware of where you're at as well. Because we all know sometimes we're just tired, we're out of sorts, we've had a really tough day, and we just don't have the energy. Whereas maybe the same time last week or, the day before, you were full of energy, you were buzzing, you couldn't wait to get going. Definitely. And I feel like we really need to be a lot more in tune to how we're feeling at the time, because pushing ourselves when we really don't feel like it is, in my mind, just going to lead to injury, and you're just going to hate it. So
absolutely.
There's a difference between giving yourself a bit of a gentle nudge and actually really pushing yourself, into doing something that it's just not right for that day. So I feel like that's where the variety, and that's where things like yoga play a big part. That, if you just don't feel like going to the gym or going out for that run or whatever you normally do, just to do a few stretches,
100%.
Just to do 5 minutes of stretches. But I feel like it's important to do something every day. Like, just even if all it is 5 minutes of stretching, fantastic. But definitely. I feel like just to honor your own body and to really nurture yourself in some way, but nurture yourself in a way that works for you. So it's not, crushing it at gym at 5-6 times a week.
Definitely. And I think also back to your point about that is, even like using my membership again as an example of training 5 to 6 times a week, it's so varied and it's so, you've got to keep training exciting. It's got to be fun. You've got to, and again, going back to what we said before, it's got to be something you enjoy doing. Otherwise you won't come, you won't enjoy it. And again, I think, because we're so much more educated now in this holistic approach to training, like you say, take a day where you just meditate, or you do yoga, or you do something nourishing for your body. That's so important.
That's a great word, nourishing. I love it.
Nourishing, it's beautiful. Just
we all just that nourish our bodies that little bit more,
definitely.
Don't we?
And just feeling that. I think because there has been this misconception in the past with training, go hard or go home. And it's so not about that anymore. It really isn't. We use words like refresh and restore now, and rebuild, and it's that kind of nurturing conversation and dialogue and description that we so much more about now, because I think again you just that old school of just feeling like you're punishing your bodies. That's not what it's about.
And I hate that. I hate that idea that, I had a chocolate bar at lunchtime, so I've got to go and work it off. And it's like, no, please don't say that.
Not at all. Absolutely.
Don't even get me started on bikini bodies.
No. Absolutely. We're far from all of that stuff now.
Yeah, that's so true.
We've come a long way, and it's been exciting to see that shift as well, and that change in the industry over the years.
Yeah,
because definitely when I started out, it was 100% go hard or go home.
Absolutely,
and it was very much about the aesthetic, and and people made lots of references to how you looked. Whether you'd lost weight, and if you'd lost weight, that was a good thing. I mean, we don't talk like that anymore. Thank goodness.
Exactly.
We're in a really wonderful, powerful time, I think, in these years of how we now view our bodies and our overall health and well-being.
Yeah, and I find it really refreshing that so many women now are doing weights and knowing that they need to do resistance training. I remember years ago, weights were shunned. It was a case of, if you do weights, oh my God, you're going to bulk up. You're going to look like a weightlifter. There was no doing a little bit. It was no toning up with weights. It was all or nothing. If you did weights, that's the look you were going for. And when all we saw in the press was stick skinny models.
Absolutely.
It was very cardio driven.
Resistance training is the best. Absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, now they're saying, resistance training over cardio any day. With the results you see. And, I'll say to my members, how wonderful is it to feel strong? When we do a total body conditioning class, they're using 3 to 4 kg weights in a workout, and it's great. It's like, don't you feel strong? Don't you feel, it's such an empowering feeling, to know
that's so true.
That resistance, and it's so wonderful for your bone mass, your muscle, your muscles, for everything.
Yeah. I feel like midlife women are now really focused on the fact that we do need to do that resistance training, and we do need that weight bearing exercise with osteoporosis, with just the fact that we are now recognizing how much muscle we do lose each year. And 100%. I think women are so aware of that actually, if we want to, we want to be strong in the years to come, and we do want to actually maintain that range of motion we have in our joints. We want to maintain that strength, and we want to live healthy for the coming years, that we do actually need to do those things. And what a huge benefit it is for us. Absolutely. So with the resistance and weight training, how often and how much do you think women need to do for midlife?
I think maybe 2 times a week, 2 or 3 times. I think it's important to have a break in between that session. And again, in the studio, for example, I might do, I do a total body conditioning on a Wednesday, and then I'll do a total body conditioning on a Friday. And you see those same members coming Wednesday and Friday for that benefit. Yeah. And what's wonderful about that is you can build on routines. You can say, okay, we've done, we specifically worked on upper body on Wednesday, and today we're going to work on lower body with the resistance as well. And then we're going to put it all together. And I think it's good to have that break in between, because on that day in between, you might do something else. You might then do yoga or Pilates or a reformer workout, or you might go for a walk. I think again, with resistance, you obviously want to be careful because you don't want to get injured either, so you have to make sure that you're not just, it's not that repetitive work all the time, that you allow your body that day of rest in between to let your muscles grow and change, and obviously get rid of any lactic acid buildup as well. I think that's important.
So what do you recommend? Is it better to use light weights or is it better to use heavy weights? What kind of effect can we have from using those two things?
It's a good question. I think it depends on what you're trying to do. Like if you were in the, say, for example, you were going to the gym and you were going to do a workout in the gym, you would say between 12 to 15 reps. And that would be moderate to quite heavy weights. I mean, obviously we're trying to tone and shape up. We want to build muscle, but, again, you don't want to go too heavy either. In a group situation, it's very different because you're in a class situation. You've got probably, I'd say, maybe between 10 in a boutique studio, 10 to 12 to 14, people in a studio at a time. And so the classes are very different. It's more about high repetition, but with good form and technique. So you're not moving too quickly, and you're mixing it up. So you're doing a total body workout. So you're doing all your upper body, your chest, your back, your biceps, your triceps, shoulders, with functional movement and maybe balance in between all of that. And then you'd be doing all your big muscle groups and then your intrinsic muscle groups. So I think it's again about not repetitive stress. It's about doing enough. So I would take my members just to the edge and then pull them back again. And then I just, and I'm crazy passionate about choreography and
I've got two left feet.
Exercise. So I do love and my playlist. So I think, it is just, again, it's just about mixing it up. It's about, again, I'll have members that I'll say, you go lighter because they might be looking after, they might have had injuries or they might not be strong. And so it's basically you do you, not everybody is the same. And I think you can say, look, these are your guidelines. You can, we might use 3 kgs in a total body conditioning class. In bar, we might only use a kg or maybe 2 max, but then you'd be doing short range movements as opposed to long lever. I think it depends on what you're trying to do. Reformer, we might go something very different as well. And I think it's just about, you want to always make sure technique and form is really good. And if you can't maintain that technique and form on the weight you're using, you've got to drop it, and then build up to that. And then, there might be members in our studio that are injured at the time. And I might say, okay, you're not going to do this, you're going to do this instead. So you have modifications. And I think it's important that women feel included. They feel visible. They feel seen no matter where they are, whatever age and stage, that they can train no matter what. That's really important.
Yeah, that is so true. And I feel like it's great. There's so many places that women our age feel comfortable exercising. I know a lot of women don't feel comfortable going to the gym, and this has been a story for many years. And even, younger women who are not comfortable and have never been comfortable in that environment. I feel like there are so many options now. There are smaller studios like you and I have got.
Absolutely.
There are sort of council-run fitness centres, there are outdoor classes. There's an option for everybody. So I feel like it's sort of it may be a case of trying many different things to find the thing that really resonates with you.
100%. You got to find what you love. And when you find what you love, you'll stick to it. You'll stick to it always.
But one thing I do love to tell people though is if when you're trying something new, do it twice. I've heard from so many people that, oh no, I don't like yoga. I did a yoga class 20 years ago and I didn't like it, so I don't like yoga. And they've got this idea in their head. And I'm like, it could have been that you just didn't like the instructor. It could have been, it wasn't a good instructor. It could have been you were rushing from work and you rushed in at the last minute. You really didn't feel you knew what you were doing. And that's the thing I feel like with anything you try for the first time you do it, you feel a bit awkward. You don't really know what's going on. You're not getting the benefits because you don't really know what you're doing. You're too busy feeling uncomfortable in that environment. In doing those movements might be completely new. Like you mentioned with choreography, if you're someone like me, that would be a real big stumbling block. But then, you know, to do that class again or to do another yoga class or whatever it happens to be, and give yourself a chance to enjoy it. Give yourself a chance to actually feel more comfortable in the environment, to feel more comfortable with the movements. So you actually have a bit more of a sense of the structure of the class as well. I find that's a big part of it. And then make a decision.
I think that's huge. And again, you know, you're so right, because there's so many different types of exercise, isn't there? I mean, even from, you think about yoga, you know, you've got vinyasa, you've got hatha, you've got, you know,
exactly.
There's just Bikram, you've got so many different types of, and reformer's the same. You've got athletic reformer, you've got more of a reformer stretch. And I think in the beginning as well, and I think this also comes down to you and I, Anita, as studio owners. You know, when someone walks into your studio for the first time, what's their first impression? And we always say you never have a second chance to make a first impression.
Exactly.
Because when someone walks through that door, you know, when you greet them to how they're going to feel, and it's so much part of our job to make sure that women aren't intimidated when they walk into a place. And, and before there would have been that intimidation, you know, you just have to look at Instagram these days and see, you know, these studios where you know, people are taking selfies of themselves in the bathrooms, and you know, it's hugely intimidating. And I think you want to come to a place where there isn't that stigma, there isn't that feeling of, you know, what happens if I don't understand, you know, the choreography, and you just have to make people feel that nothing is a big deal. You know, that they will find something they love. And you are absolutely right. You've got to give different classes a try again, you know. I know for sure I'm never running 10 kilometers again in my life. You know, I've run in my past, and, you know, I finished with a bridge run. Was it last year? I ran for Blackmores, and look, it was amazing. It was in Sydney. It was incredible. What a thing. But I knew I'm never running again. You know, give me walking.
You've hung up your running shoes forever.
Absolutely. You know, so I think there also is a time in your life when you say, you know what, this works for me, or this doesn't work for me. Yeah. You know, but you do have to find something you love.
And it is a case of being adaptable too. I feel like there's a lot of, you know, like you said, you used to run, and running is, I think, a key thing. A lot of people used to run, and now they're like, well, I can't run. I've got a bad knee and I can't do that anymore. It's like, I don't know what to do, but there is so much exercise you can do that is low impact, that's not going to impact those joints. And I feel like in midlife too, we really need to be mindful that we are looking for things that are building and protecting our joints and muscles, not giving them extra wear and tear. So we're trying to do things and get a positive outcome, not causing more damage or more strain, really.
Strain 100%. And I think also with those things as well, you know, you think about going for a walk. I mean, it's amazing, you know, and especially living where we're living. I mean, you couldn't get a more beautiful backdrop with nature and how good that makes you feel, and all the wonderful walks they do. There's just so many beautiful places to walk and be, and that in itself, you feel so good, you know. And I think you want to just make sure that you're not putting stress on those joints anymore, and you know, if you feel good when you've done something, you know, intrinsically you will say, this really resonated with me. I really love this, you know. And like you said, there's so many ways to get a bit of cardiovascular fitness. You know, it doesn't have to be a run. You can go spinning. You can get in the pool. You can swim. You can you know, you can do a little bit of maybe HIIT work where it's not that intense. You know that if you're doing something that is high intensity, it's only for a minute, or it's, you know, and you can, there's definitely ways that you can find things that just sit with you better.
Yeah. And I feel like there's little ways we can also incorporate exercise into our day. I love the small habits mentality of perhaps you indoctrinate yourself with small things that you do. You may be waiting for the kettle to boil, staying in the kitchen, doing a few press ups against the kitchen bench, or you know, a couple of squats as you brush your teeth, or balancing as you brush your teeth, that sort of thing. I feel like we can integrate those little things into our day, and those accumulate. So when you look at, okay, fine, I did 5 squats while I was doing my teeth. At the end of the week, you've got 35 squats. That's actually pretty good.
It's fantastic. You so
and it
right.
all adds up.
It does all add up. Little things like, parking your car a couple of streets away just to walk, to the supermarket, or, again, you take the stairs instead of, the lift, or there's so, and you're right, it's little, it's those habits that you create daily. It's the small habits.
It's incidental exercise, they call it.
Absolutely.
And I feel like there's a lot to be said, and it just means that we move more during the day, that we're actually that little bit more active, which is not just, we're not necessarily working on our cardiovascular fitness or anything like that, but it just makes us healthier. The more we move our joints, the more we move our bodies, the better off we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I wear a Fitbit, and I only got one a couple of years ago because I put my members on a challenge, and, we were going to do so many thousand steps a day. But, this has been the greatest thing I've ever had. And I don't even look at it in terms of, today I've definitely got to hit 10,000 steps, because incidentally on my travels, from A to B and walking into supermarkets and shopping and, back and forth to the studio, it's amazing how you clock up, those steps. And, there you've just done it. It's not like I've had to say to myself, okay, now I've got to go and walk 10,000 steps. I've got to get myself on a walk, because we're busy. We've all got things going on in our lives. And back to you just going, those small little things add up all day long,
I did find it rather depressing when my watch gave me I got about 3 times as much exercise doing 2 hours of housework than I did 2 hours of playing tennis. And I was really puffed in tennis, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
Well, I think wrong. I can relate to that, because my family says when I play tennis, Anita, I just dance on the court. I skip and dance, and I'm very animated. So
it's great. All that exercise you're getting.
You think, surely I should be getting much more than this. But the fun factor on tennis compared to hoovering at home is way more.
I know, absolutely. I was hoping you would give me the other readout so I could do more tennis.
Absolutely.
But,
well, I recently got a little bit of tennis elbow, nothing to do with tennis, of course. I think it was hoovering and hanging up washing at home. And so
you've got to stop that sort of thing.
I've got to stop it.
You need to start delegating those jobs.
That's it.
Another thing we were talking about, the walking, I was just going to mention how nice it is when you arrange to catch up with a friend and go for a walk. And do Sydney itself is full of little bushwalks everywhere. And to actually do a little walk, whether it's, down a leafy street or somewhere in nature, is really, really lovely. And treating that as a really nice way to connect with a friend is great. Rather than sort of going for lunch, it's lovely to go for a walk and then grab a coffee together. Definitely.
And that endorphin release again, you feel so good. You feel like you've sort of killed 2 birds with one stone, because you've had that lovely catch up, but you haven't just sat at a coffee shop. You've done something before, and I think that's really it's really lovely.
Yeah, I think it's actually a really good way to connect with, particularly I'd say teenagers as well, is to go for a walk, have a chat when you walk. I feel like some of the pressure out of, if it's a bit of an awkward conversation, we all know what teenagers can be like. If it's a bit of an awkward conversation, you're not sitting there looking at each other, you're walking, you've got a bit of distraction around you, you're talking. And they do say that because you're exercising, really builds that creativity in your mind as well. So you're actually, maybe coming up with some good solutions for problems or whatever it may be, but just finding that connection. And it may be just, a nice way to connect with your kids, that, we'll take the dog for a walk together every evening. And it may just be that half an hour that you actually spend and, open those channels of communication. I feel like it can be so important that
it's a game changer,
we can use exercise to really build that connection with so many different people.
Absolutely. It's a game changer for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Nina. It has been such a pleasure chatting to you, and really hearing about your experience and your recommendations for so many women in midlife. We really value everything that you said today. So thank you so much.
Oh, Anita, thank you so much for having me. And I think our takeaway from this is, find something you love. find a place you love, in terms of, whether it is in a boutique studio or a gym or outdoors, or, find something you love. And if you love it, you'll stick to it. And just the small habits every single day, and
do some weight bearing exercise too.
Absolutely. And lots of balance. We do lots of balance, which I think is so important, when you get on that bus, test
we didn't even
yourself.
talk about balance. That's a huge thing.
It's huge. Balance is huge. And I always say you get better and better and better at balance.
You do. That is one thing that I've read
practice.
that will definitely improve. If you work on your balance, it will definitely improve. And setting ourselves up for a very, very safe and healthy future.
Very exciting when we're going to look for those silver linings
absolutely every single day.
Definitely. And just embrace that next chapter for sure.
Exactly.
Thank you so much
Nina.
for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, share and subscribe so you can stay updated with more from Midlife Unraveled. To see more Midlife Unraveled, follow us at midlifeunraveled.com or at Midlife Unraveled on Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you soon.